Timothy Gaston.
Principal Deputy Speaker. The spectre of homelessness is something which is unlikely to threaten anyone in this chamber currently, but as public representatives and legislators it should greatly concern us all. I say that because, like you all, I received the briefing paper from the Simon community which highlighted the fact that 58,241 people are currently legally homeless in Northern Ireland. In the past decade, that number has grown by more than 135%. Even those figures, shocking as they are believed to be an underestimate. The ballooning of spend on temporary housing accommodation, some 34.5 million over the last 5 years, is a false economy. We need to get away from relying on temporary accommodation and invest in building more social housing, either through the Housing Executive or the housing associations, to meet the growing demand. There are many people who look at the lack of housing provision and the problems associated with connecting new builds to an at-capacity sewage infrastructure and rightly question the priorities of this government. One complaint which I regularly hear from those listed as homeless is that many perceive as the gold standard treatment received by asylum seekers in Northern Ireland. Just last week, I received a response from the Executive Office telling me that there are 301 asylum seekers housed in hotels in Northern Ireland. Give way, Mr. Carroll.
I think I remember getting away. Has a member ever been to one of these hotels? Does he understand that people actually have serious restrictions on them leaving and entering the hotels and actually can't even cook for themselves in them, so wouldn't class in a hotel in any meaningful sense of the word?
The member's an extra minute.
I thank the member for his input. I haven't been to one of the hotels, but I have been in many houses which people are in for emergency accommodation, and I can't see them being any worse, Jerry, than a lot of the emergency accommodation that are currently offered out to my constituents, and I'm sure your constituents as well. A number of weeks ago, we had a briefing on the monitoring round in the Executive Office Committee, and we're advised of a pressure of 6.4 million from service delivery to refugees and asylum seekers. That money may not come from our block grant, but it does come from the Home Office, which of course is funded by every taxpayer in Northern Ireland. Furthermore, as was clarified in response to questions from myself, that the 6.4 million figure is only the money going to the Executive Office for pressures related to refugees and asylum seekers. It does not include funding other departments such as health and education, something I am pursuing by way of written questions. Before we take on the problems of the world, we need to sort out our own homegrown ones. Then, of course, we have the very questionable wastage of departments like the Department of Communities and lobby groups and organisations which pursue political agendas rather than doing anything to address the core functions of the department, such as dealing with homelessness. In that regard, I think particularly of the funding which the Department of Community funnels into the Rainbow Project, an organisation which, as a search of the departmental website will show, has been included in a reference group and an expert panel established by the department in the past, as well as being in receipt of funding from communities. I'd like the Minister to address in his response if he will review that relationship going forward in light of the content of the Rainbow Project website, which advises people to use post-it notes to snort powder drugs. My goodness, the Rainbow Project website even goes on to advise readers that people can consent to sex if a bit tipsy or a bit stoned. Indeed, they say that's fine. Is that the sort of organisation that should be in receipt of public money? Mr.
Gaston, point of order. Mr. Gaston, could you please revert back to the motion, which is on homelessness?
That's where I was just coming back to, Principal Deputy Speaker, and I was going on to say, is that the sort of organisation that should be in receipt of public money ahead of vital core functions such as tackling homelessness? I certainly think not. It is well and good saying fine words about how we will address the housing situation, but let's not diminish and dismiss those who question the spend on people who entered the UK illegally when we cannot meet the needs of folk already here. And let's address the wastage on questionable lobby groups and spend the money where it is really needed. All ministers need to take a step back and examine what their departments are currently spending money on. To truly tackle homelessness, we need to eliminate wastage and prioritise everyday essentials such as sorting out our sewage infrastructure to allow us to build new, efficient and fit-for-purpose social homes. I believe we will only tackle this problem by building new homes for those already classed as homeless and for those who, through no fault of their own, will find themselves in that very same position in the weeks and months ahead. Instead of raising awareness of homelessness, this executive needs to tackle homelessness instead.